name is Janet Brown. I'm Executive Director of the Commission on Presidential Debates, and I'd like to welcome you to the first presidential debate of 2020. There are a lot of people who have made extraordinary contributions to making this evening possible. And in a few moments, you will hear from two of our co-chairs to start the appreciation
to those who have helped. Our third co-chair, Dot Ridings, is in Louisville, Kentucky tonight. Her leadership in debates goes back to 1976 and includes the presidency of the League of Women Voters. The CPD is the beneficiary of 33 years' worth of people who have been willing to put their name on our work. To all of those former presidents and chancellors of debate sites, of our Debates International Network, who have set their clocks to 3 a.m. tomorrow morning to tune in live, we thank you with all our hearts. In 1987, Paul Kirk and Frank Fahrenkopf co-founded the CPD. I'd like to introduce the co-chair, Frank Fahrenkopf, and his colleague are also our co-chair, Ken Wallach, to start this part of the program.
Thank you, Janet, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Health Education Campus, Case Western Reserve, and the Cleveland Clinic. And if you have not had the opportunity yet to go around and see this fantastic facility, you really should. It's just a great tribute to everyone who's been involved with it, and it's so important to our nation. To say, as Janet mentioned, that this has been the most challenging time for this commission in its 33 years of existence due to the coronavirus problems. So many people, Janet said, are responsible. We normally don't come out when my co-chairman and I come out and thank people, but we wouldn't be here today if it had not been for them. As we serve as both the sponsor and the producers of the debates, we have a crew of 65 people, most of which have been with us.
Jasmine wanted to make sure the live chat was enabled. It is.
Just checking.
Yeah. So, you know, these guys are talking about how great the Cleveland Clinic is and how great Case Western is and so forth. That's great. It's, you know, Cleveland grandstanding, which it deserves to do. But
I think you're a little biased.
I mean, I might be. I couldn't imagine why.
Well, you're a Clevelander.
Well, you know what I used to call Cleveland? The greatest city in the world.
And don't you still?
Sometimes, yeah. Not as often. Not as often. So we are getting ready for the Indians to come back and score some runs against the Stankies, who they are playing tonight. In Cleveland, about 5.5 miles from where this debate is going on, so that's pretty interesting. Go Tribe. And this is an unconventional intro. We're actually going to do our real intro in a minute. I'm going to crank back up the volume on the video that's coming from C-SPAN from Cleveland and finish my technical preparations here, okay? So everybody just sit tight.
And so we're very, very thankful for that. Many of you, I see faces here I've known and been in the audience before. There will be, in the estimate of most experts, close to 120 million people watching this debate this evening.
On our channel.
It'll be on the TV sets, it'll be on their computers, it'll be on their iPads, it'll be on their iPhones, it'll listen on the radio. And those 120 million, however it works out to be, deserve to be able to listen and observe on this stage tonight. These two men put forth the reasons why they should be elected president of the United States.
Any earpieces?
And that's why it's been our history.
I don't think that they would be dumb enough to let them be visible.
We urge our audiences not to clap, not to yell, just sit silently and not interfere with these people who are trying to ascertain who they're going to vote for.
Here.
Now,
Because
exactly
they have to
at
sit
9
in
o'clock,
silence and they
you're going to hear a lot of
They're
words
going to,
here.
though. There's people with
come
mega
on.
hats
You
and
can
stuff.
take a quick look. There's
know,
3 on this
you
side,
can't
and
expect
3
them
on
not
this
to
side.
make
These
any
are the
noise.
major nets. And
There's
at 9
there
sharp,
has
you're
to
going
be
to hear
some
them all
good,
go on
like-
air. And so it makes a
Look at
little
that
noise.
massive
Don't be
crowd,
afraid
though.
about it.
There's like There's
And
like
I must,
30 people
at the
there.
end, really thank
Well, I wonder who
the
did
people
that
that you
and made
saw
that.
on your way here tonight.
The
You
social
see around
distancing
you.
Nazis.
The United States Secret
Well,
Service,
you know that
the Federal Bureau of
it's
Investigation,
crying
Department of
about
Homeland
having
Security, and Clemson's University Media
a
Forensic Hub
virtual
that is working with us and monitoring
moderator. Well,
this
you know
web
that
and Federal Bureau of Investigation. So there's so many people to thank, and these men and women, and the police department that you saw outside, the local police department, who work so hard to keep us all safe and to keep our nation safe. So thanks. Now I'd like to introduce the newest member of the leadership team, Ken Wallach, who for 25 years ran the National Democratic Institute of International Affairs, NDI, and we're really excited to have him join us as a co-chair.
I join Frank, Janet, and fellow board members, including Yvonne Howe and Jane Harmon, who are with us tonight, in welcoming you to the
I can't even stand how awesome it
23rd
is.
presidential
So
debate
cute.
sponsored and organized by the Commission on Presidential Debates.
Yeah.
As Frank said, I'm the Commission's newest co-chair, and as the new kid on the block, I am proud to work alongside those who have been engaged in this initiative for the past 33 years.
See, they're just
These
doing
debates
filler.
have now
Our
become
feller's so much
an
more
integral
entertaining
part
than their
Well, they're
feller.
not.
our political process.
I mean, they're trying to entertain the
view
people that are
shared
there
by
live, I
the
guess, right?
Right. So let's entertain some people here.
All right, Jasmine.
But as significant
Yes,
as
Nigel.
debates have become here,
Of all the dad jokes I've ever told you,
Yeah.
which one is your absolute fave?
They've all been forgettable.
Which one's your okay? Which one was the most forgettable?
debates in 40
I can't even think of one that you've told. That's.
post-conflict countries and in new and emerging democracies, debates
Can you think of one that you've actually told me?
places where only one party
I can tell you some really tasteless Helen Keller jokes. I've had those memorized since I was 8.
personalities, and yes,
If you want.
No.
among political competitors. And that's
Who? Okay, Kenneth Wallach, Commission on Presidential Debates co-chair.
support network
Private citizen? Politician? Who is this guy?
I don't know.
40 countries.
These guys. The guy in the background looks nervous AF. Look at him.
Now I would
Oh
call
man,
your
look,
attention
he's rubbing
Yeah.
his hand and stuff. He's nervous. Is that a
Yeah.
Biden guy in the back?
2020. And the
I bet it is. Look how he's got the fast blink kind of going on too.
Okay, guy. Got a fast blinker.
Yep. Look.
Fast blinker at 11 o'clock.
Yep. He's gonna start looking down for a bucket here soon.
Council hosted a global
I hope not. I'll give him the bucket of conspiracies.
goal of the debate watch is not to say who won or
Go
who lost.
throw up in his bucket.
So I understand that the candidates have agreed to, if I understood the reporting from C-SPAN, they've actually agreed not to do an elbow bump,
We are pleased that
but an actual handshake.
notwithstanding
Really?
orders
I
And,
wonder.
and these people in here are not wearing masks. And will you please tell me that that looks like 6 feet between those chairs?
No, it's not.
That's like 3.5 feet, maybe.
and Peter Blum
This whole fucking thing is fake, right? All this COVID shit. It's just a fucking joke.
Well,
And it's not even being taken seriously, but the second you take off your mask, it's like, you know.
I know. You still feel like you're doing something wrong. Heaven forbid you clear your throat in public. People look at you like, yeah,
You got that Rona.
yeah. It's like, what's wrong with you?
Well,
of the Cleveland Clinic,
we are on
Snyder,
Twitter at Tipcast239 and
11:11 countdown. Sorry, just had to throw that out there.
Nerd1. Here comes some other Cleveland people. These east side of Cleveland, that's where all the rich Clevelanders live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Shaker
somebody.
Heights. And could that woman get any skinnier?
Oh,
Let's see what the dude has to say.
Cleveland Clinic. It is my
Her hair is
pleasure to
bigger than her
welcome
thigh.
you to the city of Cleveland.
Oh, there you go.
Tonight, you join us in the beautiful Sampson Pavilion
European
of the Health
sounding
Education
CEO.
Campus at Cleveland Clinic. We share this campus with our partners from Case Western Reserve University. This building is very special to us. It was opened just a year ago as a place for students, medical, nursing, and dental, to begin their professional journeys
Thank
by
you,
learning together
Medicare,
as
for
teams.
paying that.
At that time, as we were opening
Thank you,
this
taxpayers.
campus, none of us could have imagined that we would soon face
you
a
know,
worldwide
the Cleveland
pandemic.
Clinic here used to be really
When it
good
happened,
when it was the
we
Cleveland Clinic
converted
until it got
this
taken
building
over.
into
Yeah.
And sold.
Well, the brand doesn't matter in Southwest Florida.
No.
It's all about New Yorkiness and Northeasternness. They don't give a shit.
No.
Even though the Cleveland Clinic is like the #1 cardiac hospital in the entire world, like kings and princes from Arab nations and so forth go to Cleveland just to have heart inspections and stuff. What do you-
Well,
heart inspections.
Cleveland just must be the best city in the
Well,
world.
I mean, if you're talking about cardiopulmonary specialties, yeah, it is. It also has the best baseball team ever.
Okay.
Okay, I guess so.
Well, what about your football team?
What about them? They're 2-1 right now. How's your football team doing? Oh, what's football? You know,
They're playing the Bears this weekend.
oh, you're talking about the Chicago Professional Tackle Football Bears, the ones that play tackle football.
What?
They just started playing tackle football in Cleveland like this season.
Oh, you mean they finally learned how to tackle? Is that what you're trying to
Oh, is
say?
that maybe that's what I mean? Yeah, but tackle football though. There's a professional tackle football league that
Yeah.
it's very political, right?
Yeah.
The NFL, the
Niffle. Like Swiffle.
Niffle. From now on, it's always Niffle.
Niffle.
All right, who's the chick? What is she saying?
Co-host this presidential debate with our partners at Cleveland Clinic, and delighted to show you this spectacular space we
Another
created
PhD
together.
holder.
Research has long shown that team-based healthcare leads to better outcomes for patients. Yet nearly every academic institution continues to prepare students in separate buildings, literally in silos. Yet after spending years learning
Isn't that
only
social
with students
distancing?
from the same profession, doctors with doctors, nurses with
silos.
nurses, and so on, they are suddenly expected to know how to work in teams once they get their diplomas. We knew there had to be a better
Diploma?
way, and together
Really?
we built it.
Diploma?
When not
What?
filled with a stage
Wait,
and
she meant
seats,
degree, right?
this atrium
Well, you
gives
get-
hundreds of
when you
students
walk the
a
stage,
huge
you get your
open space
diploma.
to study,
What's
talk,
that,
and
precious
simply
freedom?
be together. The entire
Precious
building
freedom.
provides
It's like
multiple
when he
spaces
chats, it's
for
like,
them to come
yay,
together,
yay, yay,
supported
yay,
by an
yay!
academic
I
model
know.
that emphasizes
We're glad you're
opportunities
here,
to
Precious
learn with
Frito.
and from one
We
another.
are going to have
Add
a lot of
state-of-the-art
obnoxious fun. I'm
technology,
not going to talk
and
over
we know
anybody
our
during this thing.
graduates will be uniquely prepared to excel in
I can't do
team-based
that.
care and ultimately to lead it.
No, no
Along the
Donna
way,
Brazil.
Cleveland
Listen, the
Clinic and
the
Case
C-SPAN
Western
feed
Reserve
is
also learned from one another.
reliable,
Among the
and it
most
doesn't have a whole lot of
valuable
talk, other
lessons
than
was
the
that through collaboration, we
the
achieved
debaters, I
far
guess.
more than either
So,
of us could achieve alone.
that's the.
Thank you, Tom, for being such a
C-SPAN
wonderful
selection.
colleague and friend. Thank you
We're
to
actually
the commission
bringing it right
for
off
giving
C-SPAN's
both of our
website, too, so
organizations the
hopefully we
opportunity
won't
to
have
be
any
part of this historic
BS with
event.
YouTube.
It is a true privilege
I know
to
sometimes if you
contribute to our
loop
nation's
live streams back to
democratic
YouTube,
process.
they get a little.
And thank you all for watching.
They can detect that somehow.
You're probably running multiple monitors, is what I would guess. You've got things going on everywhere.
Who are we talking about?
Thank
Precious.
you, Tom and Barbara, very much.
Well, if
Most
if
valuable
Precious is
player,
imitating you, he's watching the
award for
whole
season
thing on an
goes to
iPhone
Toby
3.
Cosgrove. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. One
Certainly hope not.
housekeeping bit.
Oh, look,
for
do you
the
think those women are
audience.
Trump women?
As soon as this debate is over, if you will
I mean,
please
here
remain
comes the,
seated, you will
the
be
8
shown
best-looking women
which
in the
way
joint.
to
Like they're all
exit.
like either married to her,
And please stay
married
where
to
you
him, or
are
came
until
out of
that
him,
happens.
right?
I
No,
would
why
like
are they
to
all
now
wearing that crap?
introduce
They
Chris
definitely
Wallace,
look like
the
Trumpsters.
moderator of this evening's debate.
Yeah.
It's true though; they are wearing masks.
Take them off.
PF3's got a droid, he says. Chris is having some audio problems.
Maybe he needs to stand in front of a microphone.
He should have a lapel mic.
It looks like it's on his tie.
This is starting out great. Nobody can hear Chris Wallace. Check that off my list of things I wanted tonight.
Let's just do some bad lip reading. What I really hope is that Biden can answer a question without any prompting.
Does
before
Chris
he-
know that nobody
No.
can he be heard in the live venue, or is it just the broadcast that he can't be heard on? I mean, they need to. Where's the shepherd's hook so they can yank him off the stage and fix his mic? Can anybody in the joint hear him? Why did we lose the audio feed? That better not be on our end. Frito, you can hear us, right? Oh, there's Jill Biden. You know, maybe we should just leave the audio off and just make up our own.
No, because I want to hear.
Jill Biden looks a little nervous, doesn't she?
Let me see. Let me assess her here real quick. All right, she's breathing at a rate of about 16 a minute, so she doesn't appear to be too nervous. She's
Normal
probably taking a
respiration.
little Xanny.
A little Zanny.
Did I say that?
I'm going to drop over to the
What?
feed
Yes.
and see if I can get the audio.
He can hear us.
I'm trying to
but-
make sure this is not on our end. So everybody hang in there for just a moment while I take a peek at that.
Oh, they finally took their masks off. Good for them.
I mean, that's a bad look for C-SPAN, right?
Our campaign 2020 coverage
Wow,
continues.
that's going to be
with the
aggravating if
first
the audio
presidential
keeps
debate.
cutting out.
C-SPAN, your unfiltered view of politics.
Okay, here we go. Back to the feed.
Well, the first of 3 official presidential debates begins tonight
Your
in Cleveland.
unfiltered view
President
of
Trump and former Vice
politics.
President
Call
Biden will
bullshit
spend
on
Hey,
9
that.
that sure looks like Case
debating
Western
and
Reserve
sparring
University.
over policy and personality. That all begins at 9 p.m.
It's a good thing they didn't
Eastern
wait
Time
another
from
month,
Health
right?
Education Campus of
It would be
Case Western
snowing. It would be like a
Reserve
frozen
University
tundra
in
there.
Wait, where did all the people go?
Ohio.
Yeah, this is
Good
interesting.
evening, and thanks for joining us on C-SPAN for our coverage
What
of
the?
the first presidential debate. While the debate itself kicks off at 9 p.m.
Yeah, this
the
is
hall
canned
will be
video
opened
from a
at
few
about
minutes
8:30
ago.
p.m.
This is from,
and
that
we
video
will
is
go
from
live
15
at that
minutes
time.
ago.
And as always on C-SPAN, we'll be
All right, is this
getting
thing
your
time
reactions
delayed on
after the
C-SPAN?
debate finishes. Well, earlier today, President Trump and First Lady Melania
Oh, if this
Trump
thing's time
departed
delayed,
the
I'm
White
going to be
House via
pissed.
Marine One. They
Oh,
flew to Andrews
it's
Air Force
9:01,
Base
so
and then
they.
took
Yeah,
Air
they've already
Force One
started.
for the short flight to Cleveland. And Joe Biden flew into Cleveland from Wilmington, Delaware. Among
What in
those
the
traveling
world is
with
going
him,
on? Or did they
Ron
cut
Klain,
to something else
who's the
because their
former
audio wasn't
Obama
working?
I wonder.
point person on Ebola, and he's been helping with debate.
Oh, there,
Is
is
there
this
anybody
the
in the
same
airfield?
intro that's on Fox, PF3? Same intro here with the airplanes and so forth?
Oh wait, the people are the people back in their
Mr. Bender,
seats.
how long have you been covering presidential politics and debates?
Well, I've been covering President Trump since he was a candidate in
This is from earlier,
2015,
this Michael Bender thing.
and I've covered him
Yeah.
through the White House. My background is I covered Congress for a little bit before that. And
All right,
then,
so they're running a different
state
intro
government
on
in Ohio.
Fox.
I covered state politics there in Colorado. Spent quite a bit of time in Florida before.
We're so
coming to
Bush League.
Washington in 2013.
Well, as an election year, how does this one feel different than 2016, and particularly this first debate?
Well, I mean, I started covering the 2016 race before.
Oh, they went back to the beginning, so this is
midterms.
definitely
And
a repeat of the previous program. So, what are your thoughts about the debate, and what do you expect to see out of these two guys? Give us the long version, including your psychic impressions about what you're expecting from these two gentlemen. Okay.
All right, I think that I think that Biden has prepared some zingers to go back at Trump.
You think so?
Of course, but they've all been written. If he can remember them, I would expect him to try to drop those. But I think some of them are going to land. Like, this is just my my impression that some of them are going to land awkwardly because they're not going to, like, you know, like if you're trying to like zing somebody, like the timing has to be right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some of these are going to be like where the timing isn't going to land just right with them. And I expect some good good drops from Trump.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, that's his thing. That's what he does.
All right, so it looks like the moderator is seated. We've got a feed now from NBC because it looks like they're not on a full delay. So there's Chris Wallace, or his body double. Let me get back over to the screen cap here. There we go. Let's see if we can get Chris's audio this time. He's fiddling with his stuff. I hear him clearing his throat.
Oh. He just put his finger up. He was like,
good evening from the Health Education campus of
That
Case
was not
Western
Rona.
Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic.
Put on
I'm
your
Chris
mask.
Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The Commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments, with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment.
Okay.
Both campaigns
Open
have agreed to
discussion.
these rules. For the record,
gonna
I
be
decided the
banter.
topics and the questions in each topic. I can
I'm
assure
waiting
you,
for the
none of the
facial
questions has been
expressions, too.
shared with the Commission or the 2 candidates.
we should do
This
like,
debate is being
who can
conducted under
imitate
health
the
and
best
safety
facial
protocols
expressions,
designed
like
by the
as the
Cleveland
unfolds
Clinic,
too.
which
Like
is
if we
serving
see a
as the
good facial
health security
expression,
advisor
we're
to the
gonna
Commission for all 4 debates.
imitate it.
Oh, boy.
As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate.
Okay.
The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more
It'll
importantly
interfere
you,
with what's in
can
his
focus on what
ear.
the candidates have to say.
Yeah, that's a good
No
point.
noise except right now.
There'll be too much
As we
feedback.
welcome
gonna
the
be able to hear his
Republican
radio
nominee,
communications.
President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President
Well, I
Biden.
hope he charged his battery last night.
They're clapping.
I hope he comes out and says, "Well, clap, you stupid bastards."
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated...
It's interesting they have Trump on stage right, which is actually screen left.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight, why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think
That's a great
Justice Barrett would
lazy
take
question.
the court?
I think it's a great question
President Trump,
to
in this
roll
first
out
segment,
at
you
the
go
beginning.
first.
It's a hot topic.
I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped.
Did you notice that?
And
It is the
probably
truth.
that would happen
Look
in
at
reverse
Biden
also.
now. It
Definitely
made him
would happen in
blush.
reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you.
He's already got
Same
his blood
question
pressure
to you,
up.
Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for a United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States.
They already did that.
Yeah.
They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started.
What the?
Tens of thousands of people have already voted.
Okay,
And
is
so
this
the thing that
really
should
his
happen
rationale?
is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of
We
this
should-
election is, because that's the only way
No.
the American people get to express.
That's the reason
their
we had an
view
election in
is by who they
2016,
elect as
asshat.
president and who they elect as vice president. Now,
They're pissed
what's
that
at stake here is the
Ginsburg didn't stay
president's made it
alive
clear
until after the
he
election.
wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that,
subject
he ran on
change.
that, and he's been governing on that.
Well,
He's in the
Subject
Supreme
change.
Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now.
What does this have to do with-
If it goes into court.
With the Supreme Court?
And the justice, and I
can't wait for the
I'm
open
not
discussion.
opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went in the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that
Trump
the
already has
Affordable
his
Care Act
look.
is not
You can tell it in
constitutional.
his face.
Okay,
The
he's
other
bringing
thing
it
is
back
on the
around.
court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be held pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man did. Yes.
Okay, first of
and
all-
that ended when we, in fact,
was that a
passed the
gaffe?
Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million
First of
people
all,
with pre-existing
pregnant
conditions.
women
And they'll be taken away as well.
automatically get
pre-existing
emergency
conditions, the insurance
Medicaid
companies are going to love
of
that.
No matter
pregnancy.
what,
So it's just
no
not
matter
appropriate
what.
to
It
do
doesn't
this
matter
before
Affordable
this
Care Act
election.
or not.
If he wins
They
the
qualify
election
for
and the
emergency
Senate is
Medicare
Democrat
of
or
pregnancy.
Republican,
Boom.
then he goes forward. If not,
full
we
of
should
shit.
wait until February. All right.
There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years.
The
And the
election's
100
already
million people,
started.
Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
But
and it's not what
that
your
is-
party has said.
that is simply
Your party
a lie.
doesn't say it. Your party
That is
wants to
simple.
go socialist
My
medicine
party is
and
me.
socialist
Right
healthcare.
now, I am
and
the
they're going to
Democratic
dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
What?
Democratic
According to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act? And
Joe, you've had
pre-existing-
308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me
I'm
about
happy
this.
to talk about
And if you were here,
Look,
it
here's
wouldn't be
the deal.
200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You
Late
didn't
on
want
the
me to
draw.
ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
All right, gentlemen,
Europe, which
no,
was heavily
Mr. President,
You would have
Mr.
been much
President,
later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
You're not gonna be able to
President, as
shut
the
him up.
moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that
No.
the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's on the
begun.
ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
Why is
Okay,
it on the
I want
ballot?
to call
on the
this one
ballot.
too.
it's on
It
the
doesn't
ballot in
matter.
the
I don't
court.
think so.
In the court.
Doesn't
There's
matter
nothing
what
happening there.
he
Donald, would
And
you
you
just
don't
be quiet
know
for a
her
minute?
is opposed
view
to.
on Roe v. Wade. You
I
don't know
don't
her
know.
view.
Well, all right.
I mean,
All right,
it's
let's talk-
irrelevant. He can think whatever he wants to. That's why we have a check and balances system in the United
Well,
States.
he's the president of the United States. He's going to nominate whoever he wants.
Right, but
that's
he's
what they
not-
need to be debating
Yeah.
about.
Supreme Court will hear
And they're not.
a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well, I'll
I
give
got
you an
rid of the individual
when I finish, I'm going to
mandate.
give you an
Excuse me,
opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a
That is
big
not a
chunk of
comprehensive plan.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst
I
part of
didn't ask,
Obamacare.
sir.
Chris,
You're
that was the
debating him,
worst
not
part of
me.
Obamacare.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and
you
we
to,
will protect
Mr.
people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to
question,
replace Obamacare.
Running this
And
flat.
just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate.
What's the question,
so
Chris?
my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting
Zing
drug
one.
prices. I'm going with
That's zing
favored
one.
nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care. All of the things that we've done, insulin, I give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
If I say this is open discussion,
No,
let
but
me
this
ask
is
you about,
big.
let me,
This
you'll be
is
happy,
big stuff.
sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the Vice President, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
Well, if I can ask you the question, it will
Not
end.
what the party says, by the way.
It will end
Chris,
private
you're
insurance and
fired.
create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you
Number
agreed
two.
with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto.
So I wonder what his
that is you socialized medicine.
financial
Are you saying you
cutoff
didn't
Listen to
is.
him. The fact of the matter is,
Who,
I beat
Biden?
Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, when he
much.
says that they'll be
I've beaten
enrolled
him a
in the
whole lot.
public
I mean,
option,
I'm
well
here
then how
standing
much
facing
does
you about this.
somebody have to make
2 days
in
earlier,
order
we would've lost
to
every
not be
primary.
enrolled
I don't know.
in the public
I
option?
mean, there's-
That's a good question.
If it's a free public option, a zero premium public option, but they've never talked about that. It's not expansion of Obamacare.
No.
It's an expansion of Medicaid,
No.
which was
It's
already
almost
around.
like-
I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just
agree-
want to
Hey,
make
Joe,
sure.
you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
Glad you ordered last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be
you know,
surprised.
you pick
You'd be surprised. Go
the
ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy, the wrong night at the
Oh,
wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Feisty.
There is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
absolutely
folks,
agreed
do you
to,
have any
and under that
idea
name,
what
it's
this clown's
socialized. They
doing?
call it
Mr.
Do you have any
President.
doing?
Wow.
socialized medicine.
Mr.
I
President.
tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care because he in fact already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price because Obamacare is not good.
He doesn't know how to do that.
I've already fixed it.
He has never offered a plan.
Fixed it to an extent.
He has never done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
Let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is, and that destroyed. That they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well. And I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive, premiums are too high, and it doesn't work. So we do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time. Please let the Vice President talk.
Good. He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right, I have one final question for you, Mr. Vice President.
And I have really crappy insurance.
If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know you're senators. I'm not going to answer the question.
Why wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question is,
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
Come on, man.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it?
Shit show.
Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject, so let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools. It costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you
done.
didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
there was no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was we didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he's shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you get up this morning
weaponized?
and had an empty chair at the kitchen table? Because someone died of COVID.
As violent.
How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up.
And they weren't testing everybody under the sun.
How many people?
And whenever they look at the numbers, and I'm still going to say this, the numbers are completely skewed. Because for an employee to return to work...
it's overcounted like crazy.
Oh, astronomically. For an employee to return to work, they have to have a negative test result. Every time you swab that person and they have a positive test, they're counted as a new positive, and it's not true. It lays dormant and can lay dormant in the nasal passages for up to 70 days. And many of them...
And yeah, they keep retesting them and counting it as a new case.
Every week they were getting retested.
So why doesn't the president bring up that these numbers are bullshit?
Because he might not even know this shit.
Your government's own top scientist. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer
they were being coded
before
wrong.
the vaccine
We were
would
putting
become
people
generally
into
available
isolation.
to the public.
We were putting people into COVID isolation when they did not have COVID because the complete PCR assay was not ordered in the beginning, which showed 15 different things that they could be positive for. So we were testing people
for the common cold. Yep.
and they were being put in isolation as COVID. So the numbers are not right.
I've spoken to Pfizer, I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
The head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slawi?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available.
He said it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after
when it's
that.
generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be delivering.
This is the same man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically, you know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Vice President, I want to pick up, though.
You'll have the vaccine soon.
I want to pick up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying Senator Harris is saying you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust them.
She said the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do, but there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him.
Millions of scientists.
They're the people. And by the way,
I spoke to the scientists that are in charge.
By the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died. And a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter.
And the left knew about it because they were there in the lab back in November.
So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
if you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
You see,
and it's
We're going
going
to get
up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay. When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to provide them
Nancy Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi and Schumer,
by the way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with him in the Senate. And he sits,
Schumer,
he
that
sits
guy's
in
still
his golf
around?
course. And, well, I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play
That
more
was
than I do,
that
Jim.
was proper English
What
for
about this question of reopenings
presidential
and the fact
candidate.
Well, he wants to shut
He
down
don't
this
even meet
country.
with them.
And I want to keep it open. And we did a great
he just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he'd
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute, Joe.
Doesn't.
Let me shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
it's a
I want to move
political
on to another
I gotta
subject.
respond.
But those states are not
WO
doing well
guy.
that are shut down.
Time to move on. We got to move on now.
Time to move on. We don't want to say anything that might have a little bit of truth to
Increasingly
it.
question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I
the
think masks
efficacy
are okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things
Joe
that you
Biden
have
looks
to.
like
But
the Joker.
I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say.
I wish Trump would have come out with a
President Biden, go
gas
ahead,
mask on.
Look, the way to open
Wouldn't that have
businesses
been, like, the
is
best
give them
thing
the wherewithal
ever?
to be able to open. We provided money. The
But
Congress.
I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just
know
wore
about
masks
masks.
between now, if everybody wore
softball
masks
from
in
Chris
social
Paul.
distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also
It
said the
matters.
opposite. They've
And
also said
no serious person said the opposite.
Well, look
serious.
at
I wanna
Dr.
ask you-
Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the
He
opposite.
did
I
not
want
say
to
the
ask you, we
opposite.
got a
Said
little
very
bit more than a
strongly,
minute left in this
masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good.
I
I'm
wanna
okay
ask-
with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people.
Outside.
Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with
Because nobody will show up.
people with
Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You goes first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about it
job
spreading
as a
disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you
for
not
hangars,
worried
and
about
we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, every
does Biden keep
and
looking
literally
to?
on 24
I
hours
know.
notice.
I'm wondering the
and
same
Joe
thing.
does the circles and has
And I'm
three
also
people
wondering,
someplace.
like, I wish he
By
would
the
throw
way,
a zinger at him and
just
be
had
like, why
one of the last
doesn't
big rallies he
the,
Why does he keep looking
And a reporter
away
came
from
up
Trump
him
to the
ask him a
same
question. He
spot?
said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no
Cheek
negative
to
effect.
jowl. No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect, and we've had 35, 40,000
All right.
people
You want
at
to
these rallies.
just
Yes.
quickly finish up because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the
Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
Nobody
The
fucking
economy
cares. That's a good point.
Is, I think it's
To
fair to say,
fucking burn the
recovering
masks. Nobody
faster
fucking
than
cares.
expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong.
The China plague?
And again, 2 million people would be dead now.
You know why?
Still,
so we can get that
204,000
trendy.
people is
China
too much.
plague.
One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week, you saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery.
Who is Biden
The
talking
difference
to?
is
Voices in his head again.
millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well.
Okay.
Another billionaires have
Just ask you something
made
here.
another
The way they have
$300
these cameras
billion.
set up,
Right.
Trump is stage right.
Right. And
Which means he keeps looking over at Biden. Look right now. Trump is looking at Biden.
Right.
Biden keeps looking away from Trump and away from Chris Wallace. Who the fuck is he looking at? And he keeps mouthing things.
Here we go. Here, I'm gonna.
Agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back?
Well, yeah, he
The
is.
fact is that he
Go
has in
Trump.
fact
Chris
worked on
Wallace is
this in a
trying
way
to
that he's
save
going to be the
Joe
first
on
president
Twitter.
of
I
the
agree
United
with
States
you
to leave
at Grow.
office having fewer
Trump.
jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American?
Because it's on the
You
decline,
can't fix the
dumbass.
economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better
fucking guy
for
sounds
you
like
all
every
at
Democrat I
home
talk
in
to.
terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And
He's
then they
glitching.
decided, no,
Did you see him
couldn't
just
do that
wink
because it's
for
not a
like 10
national
straight seconds?
emergency.
It was closed
Not a
on one
national
side only.
emergency.
Really?
They've done nothing to help
That's
small
gonna be a great
businesses.
screen grab.
Nothing. They're closing.
There's memes coming
One
out
in
of this.
6 is now gone. He ought to get
What's the
on the
time?
job and take care of the needs of the
21:41
American
hours.
people so we can
So
open
21:40.
Your time is
We'll
up,
have
sir.
to go
We're
back
going to
and
get to
look.
the,
I
we're
have to
gonna,
respond to that.
well, you both
Biden
have 2
glitch.
minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever
must have put a
recover
lot
what
of
they've done in
makeup
New
on
York.
him tonight,
People want their
he
places
doesn't
open.
look
They want to
as
get back to their
sickly as
lives.
he has
They'll be
lately.
careful,
Or
but they
it's
want
not
their
him.
schools open.
People want
I'm
to
the
be
one that
safe.
brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And
All right,
people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When it took
Gentlemen, we're going to
Okay,
get
that's
to your
not something
economic
that I
plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to do, go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have a very, I built
Sir,
a great
I'm asking
company.
you a specific question, which
But
is...
let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President, I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes, on the money a school teacher makes, is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
you're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward, because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth, because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make this federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500, who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
Right.
your tax proposal.
I got it done, and you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed
And,
like it's never boomed.
The economy
Well,
is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for the American people.
But let me.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming. It turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery since economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you
I'll
what,
say,
you'll
though, my
lose half of the
401k
companies that
definitely
have poured
improved
in
during
here
his
will leave.
administration.
And your dollar
plenty of
shrank.
companies that
So
are
what
already here,
difference
they'll
does it
leave
make?
for
Hardly
other
any
places.
companies have
They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a depression the likes of which
Yeah,
you've
but-
never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
He
inherited
wants to give
the worst recession
free
short of a
college,
depression in American
free
history.
healthcare.
I was
More
asked to
inflationary
bring
pressure.
it back.
Same
We
thing
were
with
able to have
mortgages,
an economic
inflationary
recovery
pressure,
that created the
credit
jobs you're
cards,
talking
inflationary
about.
pressure.
We handed him a
It's all the
booming
same thing.
economy.
Anything
He
that's
blew
free,
it.
It wasn't
He
booming.
anything that's
but-
granted
It
for
wasn't
free at the
booming.
get-go
It
with a
was-
promise
it
to
was
free.
the
Okay,
weakest recovery.
anything that is given
Wait,
for
wait,
free
is it fair
at the
to-
get-go
is it fair to
with
say
a
he
promise
blew
to
it
repay later
when COVID came?
causes
Was
inflation
low
by its very
unemployment
nature.
before COVID?
Credit cards,
Because
free
what he did,
college,
even
got to pay
before
it back
COVID,
later.
manufacturing
And
went
somebody else
lower.
has to pay for it.
Manufacturing went
Okay, any kind of shifted debt, any kind of promise to pay later on creates liquidity, creates credit, creates debt. That
Yeah.
makes inflation happen.
So,
It would take
so where does he
miracle to
think this
bring back
free
manufacturing.
education and free
I brought
money
back
and all of this stuff is
700,000
going to come
jobs.
from?
You're not going to hear them
They
debate
gave
about
up on
this because
manufacturing.
neither of them acknowledges the libertarian viewpoint.
He totally
Okay.
gave up on manufacturing.
They both believe in endless debt created by the Fed, and Trump has not stood up against the Fed yet, ever. Well, he kind of did the first time around. He's not doing it now.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch. Down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars, to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
You've asked your question, let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
Totally,
But no, hey, Mr. President,
totally,
Mr. President, please.
totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
Well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice
He got $3.5 million.
It is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did
There was a
Burisma pay him
report.
$183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
and
Mr.
the only guy
President,
that
let
did
him
something-
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who?
And
The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our
because they refuse to
allies,
talk
by the
about it
World
because
Bank.
Go
by
ahead, say it by the fake news, Joe.
He's
Say
citing,
it.
he's
by
citing the
everyone
World Bank
has
as his
discredited.
ally.
Matter of fact, even the people who
President, please stop.
testified
But
under
I
oath.
want to get
So let
him
me ask you this,
to.
Joe.
He's trying to bait him into
I'm listening to you.
saying it's
People
fake
on-
news. He's trying to bait Biden into saying fake news and
he
admit it.
testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well. I did it
I'd like to know who
honorably.
they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the
fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good
here's
job. With you,
Go ahead.
they say-
Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey, let me
this
just
person.
tell you,
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families
deal.
and ethics I don't want to do that. I mean, his family, we could talk
We
about
don't want
all
to talk
night.
about
His
ethics,
family's
but
alive.
yet he tried to challenge him on his
lost a
taxes.
fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
But when it comes to his own family, then we're going to change the subject and not want to talk
This is
about
not
ethics.
about my family or his family. It's about your family, the American people. He doesn't, that's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need, you, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about here.
All right,
Not about here.
that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Vice President, no.
Can I be honest? It's a very important
Try to be
question.
honest.
He stood up.
No,
He stood up
the answer to
and
the
he
question is no.
threatened Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
That
get rid of
is
the
absolutely
you know what, you're
not
stop.
true.
tape doing it.
You're going to
Not
have
tape.
True.
Gentlemen.
Is-
I hate to raise my voice,
He's
but
on
it seems to
tape.
be, why shouldn't I be different than the two of you? So here's the
That's a
deal.
good point.
We have 6 segments. We have
Five
ended that
years.
segment.
He's
We're going to go
lost,
to the
man.
next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well,
This
and
is,
him too.
I think I know
Well,
why they're
frankly,
looking in
you've been
opposite
doing more
directions.
interrupting
Well, that's
than
all
he
right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than, sir, less
There's
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have.
Why?
Let's please continue on.
Because Chris is
The
supposed to
issue
be
of
remotely
race. Vice
presenting,
President
right?
Biden, you say
They
that
fucked the camera
President
angles up.
Trump's
They're both looking
response
the other way.
to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
The
President
deviation, though,
Trump,
is
you
still
have often
further.
said that you believe you have done more for black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the two of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the
Did he
Constitution.
say equity?
And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The
He's
reason I
reaching
got
his
in the
time
race is
limit.
when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people
He's
look like
got,
coming out of the fields
35
carrying
minutes to go.
torches,
He's already
their
at his
veins
limit.
bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is whose
Now,
sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is the savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
he did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. Yeah. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day, and they put up their hands, and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor.
Focus.
Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right,
what is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place?
That is not peaceful protest.
No, it's not, but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise
That's
we're
why
going to
you
get
have
to
the
the issue of
Minnesota
law and
Freedom
order
Fund
in a
there,
moment.
sir.
This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else, and he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity training?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's racist.
Yeah, you just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now. But the reason is that the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
you
crime,
still haven't mentioned. Are you in favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go
yes,
ahead.
You asked a question. Let him finish.
Law and order.
Let him.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Hey AI, hey Edmund, welcome to the live chat.
Mr. President, you're going to Mr. President,
every record in the
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question. There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
Yes.
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you never saw
a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
I know suburbs.
He would not.
So
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though, and in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding, and his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people
Answer the
in
question
the
about
communities.
BLM.
That's when crime went down.
Right.
It didn't go up, it went down. And
He's
so we
not
have to be
answering it.
engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support. He has no law enforcement
That's not
support.
true.
Almost
That's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead.
Look,
Think, we have time.
we don't have time to do
No,
anything.
think about
Listen,
it. Name one law enforcement group.
The question was about BLM, wasn't it?
I'm going to take back the
There aren't.
moderator's
I don't
role,
think there
and
are any.
I want to get
No,
to
he's
another
saving his
subject,
ass again.
which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard,
made the Joker
do
face
whatever
there.
it
Did you
takes,
see
but
that?
you stop the days and months
He
of
looked just
violence
like the
in
Joker
Portland?
on Batman.
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called for the people,
prosecuted.
the leader, excuse me, sir.
He's going to talk about Kamala
never
raising money
called
for
for
the
the
people that
leaders
did it.
in Portland and
Exactly.
in Oregon to call
She
and bring in the
freaking
National
tweeted it.
Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really? Oh, really?
Here's the
But
thing.
no,
I
that's-
sent
sir,
in
No,
the
when he
March
sent in the
Madness
National
killer
Guard,
of a
that's
young
when
man
the
in
shit
middle of the
started
street,
to
and they
stop.
shot him, and for 3
Mr.
days,
President Trump,
Portland
President
wouldn't do
Trump,
anything. I
please
had to send
interrupt.
in the U.S. Marshals.
President
They took
Trump,
care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, you know, his own former spokesperson said, you know, riots and chaos and violence help his cause.
Why is it
That's what this is all
I
about.
don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that.
I don't
And so here's the.
All right.
but
This
here's
is
the
like a
point.
really bad, like,
The
old
point is
married
that
couple, though, that's like
what he is,
arguing
keeps
back and
trying to
forth.
They're
rile
both
everything up.
really,
He doesn't
actually,
want to calm
Just
things down.
bickering.
nowhere
Instead of
near as
going in
prepared
and
as I
talking
thought
to
either
people
of
and
them
saying,
would actually
"Let's get
be,
everybody
and it's
together,
embarrassing
figure
for
out
both
how
of
to
them.
deal with this." What's he do? He just pours
more embarrassing
gasoline
for
on the
Trump.
fire constantly,
And-
every single solitary
Okay,
time.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His statement?
repeatedly.
Wait,
you have
just one
no.
second.
You've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would
no,
love
you
to
know,
end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
You
we
know, if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
We would
can
very quickly.
We can do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no,
in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay,
But they
good.
don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that
He said
they
that.
need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm willing
prepared to
do that,
specifically
but
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
His
This
own
is a left-wing.
FBI director
This
said
is a left-wing
Go ahead,
problem.
white
Go ahead, sir.
supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it,
Not
man.
It is a
malicious.
white
That's what his
supremacist group.
FBI,
This is gaslighting at its
FBI
best.
director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well,
we're
then
gonna-
you know what?
No,
He's
we're
wrong.
done. We're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
Wait,
The
we're done,
hashtag's
sir?
not an idea.
We're moving on?
Everybody in your
Antifa is bad.
administration
Come on.
tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas that are
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen, we're
group.
now moving on to the Trump
And
and
you ought to be
Biden
careful with
records.
them. They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, There has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe, and then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. He was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128
God bless you.
judges
Thank you.
to
Rona?
fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent.
He ignored the question.
When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word. Can you add
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion
He's still not
more
saying why.
just since COVID.
He should be.
You in
He's
the
still
home,
answering
you
the
got
question.
less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal.
That's why
he
you
was
said,
not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. It wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
that is simply
and various
not
other places.
True.
He made a fortune.
My son,
and he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions of dollars?
But he wasn't given tens of millions of dollars. That is totally discredited.
We've already been
totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
$3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow.
Let's talk about
Let's
to Hillary.
Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
He knows what it used to mean.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting.
You believe that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this planet?
I think a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call.
He forgot which side he's on for a second.
California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities.
Please talk about arson, President Trump. It doesn't help when people are lighting shit on fire.
I was with the head of a major country.
Thank you.
It's a forest city.
And then
he
saying
said,
climate change.
We have trees.
We would have cleaner air.
But you know, climate change causes arson.
Than California.
Well, we would have cleaner air if people weren't setting our forests on fire on camera.
But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
If you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they'd simply ignore
but you would take a lot of cars off
Chris
the market
is the third
because people
debater
would be
here.
able to afford
He's
a
the
car.
agitator. He's not the moderator.
No, he's
by the way,
not.
we're
And
gonna see
every
how that turns
time
out.
he,
But a lot of people agree with me. Many people.
he's saved
the car has
Biden
gotten
so many
expensive
times
because they
during
have computers all over the
like,
place
and
for an
bailed
extra
him out of
little bit
situations.
of
He's
gasoline.
corrected
And
it at least 3 or 4
and I'm
times.
okay with electric cars
Hey,
too.
that
I
wasn't
think
what
I'm
the
all for
question was
electric
about,
cars. I've
Joe.
given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've
Let's
done
get
in
back on
California
track.
is just crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations in all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating jobs, creating millions of good-paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down,
insult.
being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion.
Why not look at the actual argument of carbon and fucking call bullshit on it?
How are you going to do that,
Because it's not legit. Like, this whole thing about carbon production, carbon consumption, it's horseshit.
I'm going to have all of the countries come together, and we're going to unite in this big harmonious...
Why doesn't Trump call this shit out, though?
Because he's trying to be a good boy and not interject.
I don't think he is. No, it's not that. When he does interject, he's arguing stuff that's not even on point. It's like, you could have mentioned Hillary. You could have mentioned that the carbon thing is bullshit. You could have mentioned that climate change causes arson. That joke. There's all kinds of things he couldn't mention that he hasn't. Like, he's not playing ball.
$100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous, where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows, too. That's not true either, right? This is a 100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make.
At least he mentioned cow farts. That's good.
All right, let me because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes.
Weatherizing homes.
So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Thousands and millions of jobs.
He doesn't know how to do that.
There's a joke.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is
good
clean
jobs?
and we
What
all
are
are in better
good
shape.
jobs?
We spend billions of dollars now.
What the fuck is a hard good job?
Rising seas.
know.
We're in real trouble. Look what's happening just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. We, in fact, but the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along.
They're still arguing on this carbon premise, which is horseshit, man.
Paris Accord.
They're still arguing about this carbon premise, which
being a single mom is a hard good job too.
It is. It is a hard good job. Drop the carbon argument. We just move on.
The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not my plan.
That's
the Green New Deal is not my plan.
That's AOC's plan.
He made a statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
He got him to abandon all his leftist supporters by saying the Green New Deal. He disavowed it.
He said it on tape. He said, stupid bastards. He said it.
Stop.
I would never say that.
Play it.
Go ahead. Mr. Vice President. answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are polluting plants.
So do you support the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support?
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
You don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I support the
Now he just says he doesn't support the Green New Deal.
I support the Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment.
It's AOC, man. She's
Election
campaigning for
integrity.
you,
As
bro.
we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election, and what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day. What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment,
It needs
Mr.
to be
Vice
a
President, you go
landslide.
first.
That's
Prepared
it.
to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com. Decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote.
No.
His own Homeland Security director, and as well as the FBI director,
Don't
says
trust
there is
anything
no evidence at
online
all that mail-in ballots
where you're
are a
saying
source of,
how you're going to
of
vote, where you're
being
going to vote, and who
cheating.
you're going to vote.
They said that. The
Stupid.
fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does,
Fear-mongering.
by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to
COVID
Florida.
is
Number
not a
one.
reason
Number
to
two,
not vote in
we're going to make
person.
sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time,
not
and
what
their
poll
polls
watchers
stay
are
open
for,
until the
dude.
votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying
You know
to,
what does have a
to
6-foot
scare people into
radius? It's pole
thinking that it's
dancing.
not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's
just
going to
know
accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter.
We
Because
have a
if we get the
plan
votes,
for that,
it's going to be
too.
all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power.
privately
it won't
funded
happen. It won't happen.
organization
So
that's
vote.
gonna step
Just
in and
make sure
create
you
total
understand
tyranny.
you have it in your
Did I just
control
say
to
that out
determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? You get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? we won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it?
Economies of scale.
Are you counting on the Supreme Court, including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so, because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But
They throw them out
if there are millions of ballots going out
right now? What you do is you go and vote. You do a solicited ballot, and that's okay, or you go and vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people...
You go and vote. You go and vote like they used to in the old days. You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending.
You know,
they have
like
mailmen
somebody
with
who's
lots
in a
of them. Did you
nursing
see
home,
what's going
I'm
on?
not
Take a
able
look
to
at
get
West
out
Virginia,
and go
mailmen
to a
selling the
voting
ballots.
poll. Will you please
They're
send me a
being
ballot?
sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well. This is not going to end well.
I agree with
States had mail-in ballots for the last
It's clear that it's
decade or
not
more,
going to, the
5,
way
including
these
2 Republican states.
They're already,
And
I mean,
you
they're
don't
already
have to
calling
solicit
it.
the ballot.
You
It's
put the
sent
crap
to
in
you.
people's
It's
heads.
sent
And
to your
also,
home.
let's talk
What we're
about
saying is
manifestation.
Well,
You
he's
manifest what
smart.
energy that you put out
He's
there,
smart to
too.
get ahead of it, though.
By
It's
election
clear what
day.
their angle
If it
is.
doesn't get in
It's
till
clear what their
the
angle
7th,
was
8th, 9th,
back
it
in
still
April and
should
May,
be counted.
when they knew the
He's
election
just
was going to get
afraid
fucked
of
up.
counting the votes because
You're wrong. You're wrong.
No, I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden.
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me, Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court, with a Justice Barrett, will settle any dispute?
I am concerned that
Did you notice that Precious Frito changed his profile picture on YouTube?
Yes.
I like it. I think it's an improvement.
He's changed it in other places,
Did
yeah.
you change it on Twitter?
He has.
I'm going to go check it out real quick. Here, let me crank this back up so I can go check it out.
dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, when you have 80 million ballots, Senate and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't.
No, he still has the same profile picture on Twitter. He still has Donald J.
In 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's
equality,
because there's going to be a huge
72.
increase.
Chris Wallace is fine. Joe Biden's a dumbass. Trump's an angry, pissed off guy. Like, it's just a shit show across the board. I just happen to be more conservative.
The new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what, from a common sense,
does that mean
I'll tell you what it means. It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way,
feeding Biden facts and his questions to him.
That's true.
First, at the end of the Civil War, in effect.
You are correct.
And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race in Manhattan.
You had an opportunity to respond.
Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted.
Postal Service investigating trays of mail absentee ballots found in Wisconsin ditch.
And those are solicited.
And I'll be a president not just for the
from Bose Nerdly.
Yep, that's Rush Limbaugh's side man.
I want to see honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden. It's been
All right, so we're going to continue with a quick synopsis of our opinions about how the campaign ended. This is the biggest shit show campaign for president that I have ever seen. This was worse than Trump versus Hillary.
Yeah.
And what are your major takeaways from this, Jazmine? Like, seriously, what are you getting from this, other than Chris Wallace is an impotent moderator and the rules were set up terrible?
All right. Well, I don't think anything was really gained, like, of value from this. This was, like I said, this was like an old married couple bickering back and forth. And
they didn't go deeper than
I wanted to.
It wasn't deep in the slightest.
No, I wanted to see, it's like, if you have a plan, I want to hear about it. And
they didn't even hit the major issues, though. They didn't hit lying in the media. They didn't hit citizen journalism. They barely touched on BLM. They will not.
You think they'll talk about that?
Well, they mentioned
it, but he evaded the question. He never answered that question.
There were quite a few questions that weren't answered. It was terrible. But Chris also asked a ton of loaded questions. Like,
right?
He wants to speak a paragraph of his own editorial,
right?
Before actually asking the question.
Give his own opinion about it, and then throw it out there.
So, how would you rate Joe Biden's performance on a scale of 1 to 5, say?
2.
I thought he did great. He didn't have. I mean, he had a couple of snafus, but he didn't have any major gaffes. He had a couple verbal trips, but he didn't completely fly off the rails at all.
I wasn't impressed. Oh, Frito says a 3. You're going neutral. I just, I say a 2 just for the mere fact that he wouldn't answer the questions that he was given. He, like any other politician, it's like he just was using his 2 minutes to make his point and like say whatever crap he wanted to say.
So
or
what
argue.
what did the president leave on the table? Because he didn't. He mentioned Hunter. That's old news. That's been for months now. He brought up Hillary Clinton's potential indictment right at the end.
I was happy to hear that him mention that.
He went into voter fraud. He
Right.
didn't talk about COVID fraud. He didn't talk about any hoaxes in regards to national media coverage.
Well, I don't think he's not going to go into any of that. He's not going to.
He could, though, because a majority of people sympathize with that point of view. Even if they don't totally believe it, they have sympathy for it. They're open to it.
Right. But
that's right.
In order to do that, he is essentially all of the press conferences and everything that he had done when the ivermectin with the convalescents and blood transfusion and everything.
Yeah.
And then he does Operation Warp Speed and talks about like the rolling out of the vaccine and everything like that. You know,
it was all so like
very
skin deep, though. This discussion, like they didn't talk about the controversy around the vaccine. Yeah, they mentioned that people are opposed to taking it. They never got into why, though.
Nobody will actually say why unless you're one of us. Like that's the meat and potatoes of it. Nobody is going to say why they're opposed to it.
I don't know why they don't. Because here's the thing: a
Do you
majority
think-
of
do you think that
Americans
they're going-
sympathize with what Trump actually believes. So why isn't he saying it?
Well, do you think? I mean, I will say where there is some validity in one thing that Biden said was about the vaccine being available by the end of the year, and he's like, no, it's going to be later. The FDA will be absolutely insane to approve this vaccine before the end of the year because
Which
you
is
have.
good, but here's the
yeah,
thing.
it is good.
But Trump is the master of hyperbole, so why didn't he bring out all these other? Okay, he's going to say, okay, a vaccine's coming out by the time next week it's coming out. That's hyperbole. Clearly, everybody knows it. So why doesn't he use that hyperbole on all these other angles where he could just crush the fucking guy and make him cry on live TV?
Yeah.
Okay, he was going off about Hunter Biden over and over because of the Ukraine deal and about the appointment where he received a whole bunch of money and this and that. But he didn't talk about, he didn't once mention Joe Biden's running mate soliciting money for BLM and soliciting money for people connected to Antifa. That was never brought up.
No, he didn't because I don't think, like I said, I don't think he has the cojones to come out and say that. And I think that there's not enough probably evidence to make that grand of a statement on something like this. Oh God, take your damn mask off, woman.
I know. Well, she's.
Or are we going to talk to the camera with our mask on? What the fuck?
Well, at least she
Can't
has
stand
a
this
matching
shit
mask.
anymore.
Yeah. Listen, Pence is going to eat Harris alive. PF3 just was talking about the VP.
I
debate
was
that's
thinking
coming up.
about that. I was actually like, that's what I was like. I'm like, I really am looking forward to more of that. Because I think that's where you're going to really see, you'll probably see some very good and heated headbutting. And
It's got to be better, though, because Kamala Harris
at least
has
she
the
can
same.
talk.
Yeah, but she has the same problem that Donald Trump has. She gets so mad that she can't think right. Like Donald Trump gets so worked up inside his brain that he can't make the point he actually needs to make.
Right.
She has that problem, too. Pence does not have that problem.
Right.
He will murder her.
And I'm looking forward to that.
I was expecting Biden to get murdered. All in all, I say, given my low expectations, I give Biden a 4 out of 5. I give Trump a 3 out of 5.
What?
Yeah, because Trump didn't show up tonight at all, and he didn't show up at the Breakthrough Therapeutic Conference either. I mean, he's 0 for 2 as far as our live streams are concerned. I'm still voting for him,
I was going to say.
but Yeah. So
I'm going to take you out back and smack you around a little bit if you're changing your mind.
So,
Because,
real quick on the idea of Joe Biden being fed lines.
yeah.
I think that, because he kept looking to his left, right, which would have been his stage left, and he kept mouthing things. And we were thinking, what the hell is he doing? He's not looking towards the moderator. He's looking
Right.
away.
Well,
Who's he looking at? And then I realized at least, that Trump was doing the same thing.
Right.
So what happened then was Chris Wallace was on their teleprompters to
Mm-hmm.
their respective left and right.
Right.
So they were looking away from the center cam, even though Chris Wallace was being presented as being in the center of the room. So Chris Wallace wasn't actually there, even though they gave us this live feed showing him sitting in front of them.
Yeah.
Which is also kind of horseshit. They don't need to use special effects in politics because that's the Hunger Games, man. Anyway, that's going to be the end of my soapbox. We are deep, deep, deep into this, and I think it's time we wrap things up.
Yeah.
Jasmine Starr, final thoughts.
What a letdown.
Yeah, it's ugly, right? It's ugly, and it's getting uglier.
Well, there's just so many points that could have been made, but, they're not going to say what we want them to say. I mean,
They should, though, because here's the thing: he has the support of his conspiracy theory,
Here's one.
suspicious right. There is no mainstream right.
Here-
It's only people that are out on the far right that are supporting him. There is no centrist right.
Did
right
you
now.
see where he would I think it was the white supremacy, and he was like, "What specifically? Tell me what group. What group are you talking about? Tell me what group."
Right.
And he was like trying to
Yeah.
get
Name them. Name
Yeah.
the KKK. Okay. Name the Freemasons. Name the Antifa. Name the white-controlled BLM. That's what Trump wanted them to do,
He
and
was
they
trying,
wouldn't.
right? He would not, and they wouldn't.
But right off the rip, the initial question was,
But-
would you?
But that's what they were. That's the question that was aimed at him, and he
Yes.
was like, "So what groups are you specifically asking me about?"
The question was, will you condemn white supremacy? And he said, of course I will. And
Right.
then they kept prodding.
And then when they mention about,
I mean, what fucking idiot wouldn't say, of course I will?
and they bring up Kenosha. Okay, that was the other thing that kind of raised a flag for me when he
Yeah.
was like in response to that.
It's too soon. There's so much more to understand about what actually fucking happened there with Kyle Rittenhouse and everybody.
Right.
You're going to call that white supremacy? Organized white supremacy?
Okay,
it's a
now-
fucking BLM protest.
You had a protest that was going on. Okay, it was violent. There's multiple camera angles that support
And
the
they
action that was
didn't even get
taken.
into it.
Well, and
Is it
it
too
would
politically dangerous for Trump to get into those details?
Well, I think it would take more than 2 minutes to even explain your point.
He's trying
But-
not to get shot. Why not
So-
at least raise points then that people may not be aware of when they're watching
but
Fox?
it's like when you drop, it's like they want to drop Kenosha in there, and pin that as like a white supremacist militia. You listen to the actual
It was
accounts
people that actually
of it,
went up there to help out
and-
and weren't expecting to get a war out of it.
No, it was like they went into it, at least what we believe, based on the testimony that's been given thus far to us, is that they were there to just simply help, like people keep their property, keep their businesses from burning down, and just stand there as just standing guard essentially.
Yeah. Well,
So what is it if you don't have police that are available and your business is
the
getting
police
ready?
were there. They were just standing down. They weren't doing anything.
Well,
And people are
and
fucking
but they were
fighting in the
down-
street, and the police won't take a side based on what they see going on constitutionally.
But they were down, they were down
They were 50, 60, 70 yards away.
Right. But I mean, when you look at it, there was mayhem freaking everywhere.
You know,
so
they didn't want to get shot either.
Who knows what
So
necessarily
that's
went
not
on
what the
there.
debate was about.
But,
the fact is they didn't
but,
get into
you
those
know,
subjects, right?
No,
they
but
avoided it, and it was all
but they
super
brought
softball.
it up. But they brought it up, and that's what they were trying to say, that that's like a militia. And it's like, no, these are people that were using their Second Amendment right.
Well,
and
that's
trying
what the
to
militia
defend.
is. The militia is people using their Second Amendment rights.
That's
There's
not
nothing,
a militia.
There's nothing wrong with a militia. A militia is a good thing. It's defined as a well-regulated idea in the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment mentions that we need militia. That's people banding together with weapons to defend the First Amendment. There's nothing wrong with the militia at all. So using militia as a bad term is a faux pas.
But that's what they tried to do, because they tried to link that word with white supremacy.
Right. They always try to. They've been trying to do that since the
inaccurate.
Colorado Federal Building with the Michigan militia. They've been trying to. That's the oldest trick in the book.
Well,
they've been trying to do that for 30 years.
It just pissed me off.
Well, we're all happy. We're all happy now because it's over. And so we're going to sign off at this time. Any final thoughts, Jasmine Starr?
No, I gave my thoughts.
All right. Well,
but I do want to say thank you for anybody that was on the live chat, especially.
We saw AI, we saw Edmund Arch, we saw Precious Frito. There might have been one or two others. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so
at
much.
Tipcast239 on Twitter, at Trouble239 on Instagram, at patreon.com/Trouble239. And that's it for us. Everybody stay out of trouble, okay?
How do you turn that thing on?